welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another episode of your weekly dose with Bontle. So I hope you've done the right thing and subscribed to my channel if you haven't, and that you hit the notification button so that you get a notification every time I upload a new video. I hope you're all doing well and that you're having a great one, and I hope you've had a good week this far. So today I wanted to speak to you guys about, is it pressure or does it actually stem from our own desires? So today I actually wanted to ask you a question. Many times when you found yourself doing something that either was not the right decision for your life or something that actually made you feel uncomfortable, did that decision come out of you being peer-pressured by the people around you, or did it come from your own desires? So what I've done is I went ahead and I googled a few definitions. I googled the definition of peer pressure and I've googled the definition of desire. So I'm going to go through these definitions with you guys. So the definition of peer pressure: a feeling that one must do the same thing as other people of one's age and social group in order to be liked and respected by them. Well, I would say, for instance, drinking in high school because this seems cool. I don't know. And then definition of desire: a strong feeling or wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. Well, from my experience, I can't really say I've suffered from peer pressure because I've always been one person to actually do things that I'm rather comfortable with. But I also won't lie and say that I've not fallen for the, or I wouldn't lie and say that I've rather not been in the space of being pressured or rather feeling the need to please those around me. One time I found myself back in high school. You know, in high school, me and my friends used to bunk. We used to bunk to actually go to movies and do all sorts of things that we shouldn't probably have been doing. And later on in life, I sat down with myself and I actually asked myself, I'm like, what actually made me do those things? Because you know, you look back at the things you've done when you were younger and oh my word, I can't believe I actually did that. I've gotten up to such things, right? So one day I'm just sitting and I'm thinking, like, when I actually bunked in school, could I really say that I did it because I wanted to be cool or liked by people around me? Well, at that time, when I was 16, of course, probably I did it because of those reasons, because I was not more self-aware of myself. I was not more intertwined with my emotions. But sitting down now and thinking back at that and thinking about those situations, I actually find that the reason I actually probably bunked school is because of my own desires. And when I say this, I mean the thrill that would have come out from bunking school, the excitement that came with all of those things. So what I've realized when going through life is that I've come across, like, for instance, like I said, I've done things at a young age, whereas they were not probably the right decisions for my life, and my parents would say, you know what, are we giving her too much freedom, or is it because of the friends she's with? And what I've experienced and what I've went through in life is that most times when we make bad choices and fall into bad habits, our parents would usually blame the people around us, you know, like our friends, the people we would hang around with when we come back from schools, if we're not attending schools in our surrounding areas, and say, no, you know what, you cannot hang out with that person any longer because this person is not a good influence for you and doesn't help you make good choices. And what you do is that you find yourself staying away from those people, refraining from hanging out with those people, because you believe that if I actually stay away from those people, and the people, your family believes that if you actually stay away from those people, you will not take up those bad choices. For instance, going out late, not sleeping at home, because these are actual things that happen. As long as, even though we do not actually like speaking about it, these are things that happen, especially with our youth of today. You find young girls going out, getting involved in situations they shouldn't be getting involved in, right? But then your parents believe that if probably this child had to stay away from this certain person, they would probably not get up to those actions any longer. They would probably not do those things any longer. And you also stay away from those people, and a couple of years go by and you really don't get up to those the bad things you would get up to, or you probably don't make the bad decisions you would probably make daily. But that, I think that's because you probably not put in a situation where you are actually tempted to make to take that bad decision or get up to that bad behavior that you shouldn't be getting up to. And my question here is that what happens when later on in life you are put in a different crowd, you are surrounded with different people, and you end up making bad choices yet again. You end up making decisions that doesn't really benefit your life in any way, or doesn't really grow you as a person. You know, what happens when you find yourself in that decision that I'm actually back to making the same decision I made when I was 16 years old, and I was actually hanging out with that group of people, and now I'm 21 years old and I have a new group of people, and I'm actually back to taking those bad decisions, back to this old back to the old bad habits that I initially wanted to get out of. What happens when you find yourself in that situation? And that's where I think that's where you need to step in, and you need to do the self-introspection and understand that probably this really stems from my own desire to actually do these things. When we're younger, I wouldn't say we're really aware of these things. I wouldn't say we really have much knowledge on even our emotional stance, or we've much educated on mental well-being. But the truth of the matter is that I hope that when we have this kind of conversations, what it can do for us is that it will help us break generational curses, that it will help us look into our own lives and be able to actually do self-introspection, that it will help us take responsibility and accountability for the things we do. And please don't misunderstand me and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's no such thing as bad company. Of course there's such thing as bad company, and if you hang around with bad company long enough, you surely fall into the same traps. But basically what I'm saying is that if ever you are with the same group that's bad company, you need to actually look at yourself and say, maybe I actually desire being here. Maybe I actually desire being in this group of friends that get up to these bad things, that make me do things that I'm not happy with the next day. Maybe I actually desire this, and I'm just hiding behind my friends and making it seem like I really didn't want to, and in the spur of the moment, because it was so fun, I just did it because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. Then you definitely need to look at the inside and just really come to a point where you ask yourself, did it not stem from my own desires? And I think the reason why we're not really willing to ask ourselves that is because we're not really ready to look at the root of our desires. We're not ready to look at where does this desire actually stem from. Like, at which point did I get to this point where I have this desire? You know, was it the things I watched at a young age? Dating young, for instance, it takes a lot from you. But for a kid that dates at 12 years old, where does that desire come from? Does that desire come from seeing people date? Are we going to say it's the pressure from seeing young girls her age dating? Are we going to say it's maybe an absent parent not being there? Now this child has a desire to be loved. So those are the things I'm saying that we need to look at when we speak about being pressured into things. We need to look at our own selves. We need to look at our hearts and say, and search our hearts and ask, what was my intention when I actually did this? Maybe I really wanted to do it. And the only way to ever fix anything, or the only way to stop the habits that we really dislike about ourselves, is actually getting to a point where we say, you know what, maybe I actually desire to do this. Maybe I actually wanted to make this bad decision, and I'm actually unhappy with doing this. I'm actually unhappy with taking up these bad decisions over and over, being in a cycle over and over. And maybe I want change, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you wanting change. But before we go ahead and point fingers at people and say, you know, my life turned out this way because of wrong friends, maybe we should ask, maybe yes, I was with wrong friends, I was with the wrong crowd, but I personally desired that, and nothing will actually change unless we take responsibility. We will never be able to change anything unless we take the responsibility we need to in order to change the things we want to in our lives. I want you to tell me from your perspective, now that you're an adult, do you really believe those times you were actually pressured into something, or it actually stemmed from your desire to actually want to experience that certain thing? So James 1:14, that's the verse I'm going to be reading from you guys, because when I actually thought about this topic, I actually really went back to this verse, and yeah, basically, yeah. So okay, so I'll be reading from James 1 verse 14. But each one is tempted when he is dragged away, enticed and baited to commit sin by his own worldly desire, lust, passion. I'm going to repeat it again. But each one is tempted when he is dragged away, enticed and baited to commit sin by his own worldly desire, lust or passion. What I've picked up from James is that James tells us that when we do things, or when we're tempted, it's because of our own desires. When we put in situations where we say we were tempted to do this because we were in a bad environment with people that were not good for us, the truth is we did it because it came from our own desires. We were enticed by the idea. It's like, when something is wrong, it calls you in. It has this luring feeling where it just lures you in, right? It's like sin. It's so wrong, but it can be so much fun, and it just lures you in and lures you in and lures you in. And what we don't realize is how much time it steals from our lives, how much it steals from us as individuals. Today I want to encourage us that instead of blaming those around us and saying, you know what, I was pressured into this, that we would actually take responsibility and be accountable for the actions we've done in our lives at this age. Whereas when there's something you do not like about your life at this point, or there's habits you do not like about your life at this point, then we would take it upon ourselves and say, but where does this habit stem from? Where does this root from? What is it that I actually feel like I'm getting out of this that makes me continue doing this? And once you've actually dissected that, that's when you're actually able to take the next step and able to work on you not falling into those habits. But I also want to encourage us that as much as we want to change things about ourselves, as much as we put ourselves in positions that we probably don't like, that in the same breath to still be kind to ourselves, to still be loving to ourselves. Because if you correct anything out of a perspective, if you are going to correct anything out of the perspective of hatred, then you're never going to correct it properly, or you're probably never going to accomplish what you're trying to correct, because it comes from a place of hatred. But if you do it with love, I believe you will be able to correct it. I believe you will be able to grace yourself and to grace those around you. It's like, for instance, when you find people in situations of gossiping, or you find friends in a group where they start gossiping, and next thing this gossip gets out and it causes conflict, and then now the one friend is saying, no, but I found our friends gossiping and I got there, and then I just continued on with the conversation. It was a choice to continue on with the conversation. And if you're willing to say such negative things about people, and you're willing to speak negatively in a negative light about those you claim to love and care about, then clearly you need to do self-introspection, because there's probably something you don't like about yourself, and there's probably something you see about yourself in a negative light. And listen, I just want to remind us that as much as these things do happen, I don't want us to think we're bad people or horrible people, or that we're not progressing people. No, I want us to approach this with care, with love, with kindness, and with grace, and that we would actually think about it, and that anytime we put in a position where we are quick to blame the next person, that this person made me do this, we will sit back and say, but where did this desire stem from? Was it actually my own desire? Maybe my desire is to please people. Maybe I want to please people everywhere I go, and that's your desire. So I want us to work on those things, and that we may be able to do better as people and strive for greatness as people. And listen, I just want to remind us that as much as these things do happen, I don't want us to think we're bad people or horrible people, or that we're not progressing people. No, I want us to approach this with care, with love, with kindness, and with grace, and that we would actually think about it, and that anytime we put in a position where we are quick to blame the next person, that this person made me do this, we will sit back and say, but where did this desire stem from? Was it actually my own desire? Maybe my desire is to please people. Maybe I want to please people everywhere I go, and that's your desire. So I want us to work on those things, and that we may be able to do better as people and strive for greatness as people. For us not to rather blame it on people, but to sit down with ourselves and say, where does it stem from? And I just wanted to remind you that we are made new in God. So anything you want to do to change those bad habits, to change those negative speaking, to change how you do things, or to change the environment you're in, I want you to take it as one step at a time. Believe in yourself. Believe God is with you, and believe that God is for you, and allow God to guide you. And please, please, please pray about all things, and let Him be the author of your life. Let Him be in charge of your life, and let His words be a light to your feet. Have a happy week. Thank you. Bye.